Hey. So, this is going to be another one of those priority tier list things, but this time I'm going to do it for, let's see, what skill are we doing today? Yeah, Vengeful Fighter. Alright, so, before I go into it, let me go ahead and explain to you what Vengeful Fighter does and how it works or whatever.
Yes? Yeah! I refuse to lose! My turn? All right! With all my might!
So yeah, that's basically the gist of it, and as a reminder, only armor units can use it. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Now, one of the things you'll notice immediately is Arden over there sitting at C. Well, that's because he already has Pursuit Ring. There's absolutely no reason to give it to him, but he's on this list because he can inherit it. Not that you would, or not that you should. Moving up from that, we have B tier with Hector. Now, Hector's a strange one. Like, it sounds like a really cool idea to give it to him because it's basically the equivalent of Quick Riposte 4 with a little extra cooldown, but then you kind of realize there's kind of no point because he has arm ads, and it's like, unless you just really want to take arm ads off, then, you know, there's no real honest reason to give him Vengeful Fighter, but it works decently well on him. But he wants Bolt Fighter instead, and I'll probably go over that later. So, moving up, we're starting with Winter Crom. Now, I'm sure you're thinking Winter Crom would be a perfect person to use it, and, well, he kind of is, but he'll do better with Bolt Fighter, just like everyone else on the A tier. Basically, for everyone in A tier, it's good with them, but it has its own weaknesses, and they're better off using Bolt Fighter instead if you can obtain that. Now, that said, with Spring Chrome, this also applies to Effie and Zephiel, and as well as Winter Tharja. They don't exactly have the speed to abuse the full power of Vengeful Fighter. See, although you're letting yourself get doubled, sometimes there are doubles that you just cannot take, and that's true for like every character on this list. Sometimes that extra speed is exactly what you need to get like the extra kills or whatever. So with that, the faster you are, the less likely you are to get doubled, and you can get the Quick Riposte hit with like a cooldown charge or something. Like, let's say you're using Slaying Lance and you're going to use Ignis. Since it starts on a 3 cooldown, you don't really need to take a double because it'll already be up if you were to get attacked, and then you double them afterwards with Quick Riposte. So it'll start at 3, you'll get hit, it'll go down to 2, you'll hit them back, it's ready. There's no need to take another hit that could potentially kill you when you can just double them right there and get your Ignis proc or your Glacies proc. So lastly on the A list, we have Winter Elisa. Now the thing with her is she comes with Bolt Fighter, so of course you're better off keeping Bolt Fighter on her than giving her Vengeful Fighter. Although she does have a decent amount of speed to do what the others above her can do just as well, it's better off to leave her with the Bolt Fighter, which is why which is why she's a little bit lower, as this is again priority as well as tier. So in A+, we have Amelia, Halloween Henry, and Halloween Jacob. Again, these are units who perform better with Bolt Fighter, but again, if you get access to one and not the other, then these are probably the next best units to use it on. That said, with Amelia, again, you have like the Slaying Axe combo with like Ignis or something. Or, well, or her attack's decently high, you can probably use Dragon Fang. And that's like with a distant counter Vengeful Fighter build. Like basically where you would put Quick Repulse, you would just put Vengeful Fighter on these units and it'll do just as well, if not better. Well, actually it will just do better, but moving on. Next we have Halloween Henry. Halloween Henry, again, is another one of those, you can build them either way you want. It's like, you can do Close Counter with Altom and then Vengeful Fighter, and since he's really fast, like he's like Nino tier fast, but he also has access to armor buffs, which means he's actually just straight up insane. So that said, you can do Close Counter Owl with Vengeful Fighter and you'll pretty much just end about anything that touches you. Well, aside from a few exceptions. But yeah, he's an extremely hard unit to double already, so unless you can one-shot him with something red, you're gonna have a really hard time. This also applies to something like Halloween Jacob. If you're going all enemy phase, you can either keep Monstrous Bow or you can switch over to Guard Bow, which is probably his best bet. Or you can do something like Slaying Lance, which I personally believe is a little bit better than the Guard Bow. So lastly, we have the units here in S tier, and basically everyone in S tier, they really want Vengeful Fighter over Bold Fighter. Although they can use Bold Fighter pretty well, their best set usually is going to involve Vengeful Fighter instead. Now the thing with Black Knight is, depending on who you talk to, everyone will probably agree that his best set is usually something like Steady Breath and Quick Repulse with Quick Impulse on his seal. Or something like the same thing, but instead of Quick Repulse, it'll be Wrath. It all depends on who you talk to. Both builds are exceptionally well, so using Vengeful Fighter to have a higher threshold that is basically Quick Repulse 4 with a little bit of extra, you know, that's a really good option. It's also pretty good if you don't have Steady Breath, but it's not going to be as good as actually having Steady Breath unless you just want to really put a lot into his speed in order to make sure he doubles. But you know, he has distant counter built into his weapon, so that means he does have an open A slot, and that means you can really mix up things here, which is really what puts him here at the top. Next in S tier, we have Gwendolyn, Sheena, and Draug. Is that how you pronounce that? Drag? I don't know. But anyway, we have those three. Now these three are basically the same thing, but in a different color, respectively. Although Draug's a little bit faster, they basically all serve the same purpose. As far as enemy phase goes, they just cover it depending on their respective color. Well, Draug not so much, since he has like no res at all, and it's actually very hard to patch up his poor res, but he does have the speed, so any physical unit will be no threat to him. But yeah, basically they all run a really good distant counter Vengeful Fighter run, and it's like pretty great. Since a lot of time you're running these particular three armors, usually for score, especially as a free-to-play player, like if you're looking for merges to stay in tier 20, these three are definitely your best bet. So investing in them is actually a pretty great idea as far as scoring goes, and that means you'll probably use score IVs on them. And specifically for Gwendolyn, hers is speed, so that means you get to dump everything in the speed, and you can get like 40 something speed, so it really helps her because she already has an amazing amount of defense and res. And the same goes for Sheena, and their best weapon is of course slaying weapons, because you want to be able to get Ignis out as fast as possible without having to take a double. And since you're going to have 40 something speed with these units once you are done buffing them, that should give you a pretty easy time. Plus, even if you do have something that will still W, like for Gwendolyn, she has the advantage of all of the fastest units in a game being sword units, so even if Ira, Mia, or whoever the fuck doubles her, she doesn't take damage anyway, so, and even if they double her, it's like barely a scratch, so that definitely puts her in a more advantageous position than the other two. But overall, these three are definitely some of the best units you can put this on. And lastly, in S tier, we have Winter Robin, who basically serves some of the same role as Gwendolyn, but not as much res, but he has a lot more base speed, so he's a little bit easier to use as far as enemy phase goes, and not having to patch up his speed too much. His base defense is good, so he still can fill in most of the roles that Glenelyn can fit, like against Ira, Mia, and all that other shit. So you have that, but you might have a little bit of trouble with some mages, but his score IV is plus res, and you do have access to Berkut's Lance, so you can definitely patch up his res to the point. It's the same for Effie, although Effie wants something a little more player phase with her attack stat. That said, that's pretty much how it goes for all of these units. Basically, if you're looking to make an enemy phase armor, I'd like for this list to be a really good idea of like what you want to look for first if you're considering it. But I'll also go over Bold Fighter as well. So yeah, that'll pretty much end the video. You know, come hit me up on Discord, man, if you ever have any more questions. I do read all of my YouTube comments, or at least I try to. And you know, if you got tips or whatever, if you got like other suggestions you want to throw in, you know, I'm down to listen. Just you know, post them. And yeah, later.